Chapter 66. A New Change. The next day. Twilight's dreams were inconsistent, to say the least. Some were dark and dismal, some happy and elated. Her mind was all over the place, hopping from one point to the next. Princess Luna hadn't visited, though she probably had her hooves full with every other soul within the city of Canterlot. Either that or her dreams were too erratic even for her. But whatever the case may have been, Twilight ultimately had little reason to complain. After all, it had been some time since she was even allowed to dream. And amongst those dreams she could hear more and more voices gradually returning, full of joy and celebration for the Queen of the Equestrian Hive's release. Her hive mind was slowly knitting itself back together, every changeling who had been a part of it subconsciously reaching out and finding her again. It would take some time to heal completely, for all those yet to be found to reconnect to the hive, but its inevitability was certain, though she had to mourn those who could no longer return, having ascended into the ever-after. She would always hold Immortalis in contempt for their loss. But with some voices gone, so would others join. There were still refugees from the hive of Queen Draco, those who had been claimed with her old friend on the Empress's initial return. They would all have a welcome place in Twilight's hive in the days to come. But whatever the case may have been, even drained as she was, Twilight could not remain in a state of sleep forever. Slowly, she forced herself to open her weary eyes and take stock of the environment. She was back in her old room, the one she had lived in before Celestia had given her the observatory tower. The same room where she had discovered that she was, in fact, not a regular old unicorn. The place she had stayed on first reuniting with her mother, and after serpents had attempted to claim her life. Now she was here again, as was the dragon curled up at the end of her bed like some kind of loyal dog acting as its master guardian. Twilight snorted at the thought, wondering if this was some previously unknown side effect from his time in the mirror portal, as long ago as that was. Spike stirred at the movement, his draconic eyes slowly opening. Twilight?
Yes, Spike, I'm here.
Good, Spike muttered, as good with early starts as he always was. Was hoping it wasn't just some really good dream.
It could still be. Dreams within dreams and all that.
Oh, don't start on that. Twilight laughed.
Okay, Spike. I'll behave.
Yeah, good. Twilight rolled her eyes, slowly sliding out of the bed while making sure to leave her assistant relatively undisturbed. He hadn't left her side since the battle's conclusion yesterday, almost as if he was scared she'd vanish should he lose sight of her. Now he slept like the baby dragon she knew from all those years ago. She smiled, giving the slumbering Drake a small kiss on the forehead before she left the room entirely. He'd find her when he finally woke up again, but he deserved the rest in the meantime. Twilight did as well, thinking about it, but she could not will herself to sleep any longer. She still had a lot of work to do, and people to see. The conclusion of the battle had been a blur. She recalled meeting the strange changeling drone, one whose shining armor had encouraged her to get to know better. She had filed that somewhere in her brain for a later time, but after that she had been reunited with her friends in the flesh, before Princess Luna had emerged with the rather beat-up Queen Vulgaris, the changeling queen's chitin now sporting a dark red coloration. The latter didn't stay long, wishing to see what had become of her hive. Luna, meanwhile, forced Twilight to the nearest medical professional for a checkup. Most of the changelings who'd been with Immortalis had departed by this point, heading back to their respective hives in a daze. Many had wound up in Canterlot, and were rounded up in the castle for the time being. Twilight could still see many of those drones wandering the halls in confusion, trying to come to terms with the recent trauma they had been forcefully subjected to. More than a few hadn't even been guards or soldiers, just civilians, pressed into a war they wanted nothing to do with. Too many were young, Mere teenagers, likes of Uvenus and Palula. The Empress had used every changeling she could, with no care as to who or what they were. But after the checkup the day before, Twilight had done her best to calm the changelings with the help of a few other queens, those who had opted to temporarily remain in the city. Queen Cocoon had likely stayed up all night doing just that, but Spike had eventually dragged Twilight away to get some rest. She hadn't seen hide or hair of Celestia. She hadn't even seen any of her friends and family after the initial defeat of the Empress. Things had simply been too busy and hectic. Normality would not return in but one night. Twilight saw several of her own changelings as she made her way to the throne room, each one bowing to her as she passed by. Even some of the other drones, or at least those able to notice her, looked at her in reverence. The one who had defeated the Empress and freed them all. She didn't feel so much like that herself, though. She'd spent far too much time under her spell for that. She approached the throne room, hoping that some familiar faces might be inside and waiting for her. And in that regard, she would not be disappointed. The great doors opened, and Twilight immediately saw all of the gathered individuals within. Princess Luna was there, as were both the captains of the Royal Guard. There were changelings present too, Cardus and Facade to be specific. The former's family were not present, likely resting up following what had transpired the previous day. Facade caught Twilight's eyes as she entered, though he immediately broke eye contact as if embarrassed, likely because of their introduction from before. But then there was one other, one whose eyes widened at the sight of the changeling queen, filled with untold amounts of joy.
Celestia? We didn't mean to!
Palula cried out, burying her head in Scarlet Snow's chest fur.
I'm sorry. Really sorry.
Palula continued her distraught wails, which bounced off the walls of the bedroom, being held in the comforting grips of both Scarlet and Saronis. The two changeling sisters had undergone the same metamorphosis as the others who had been connected to the Empress. They were both colored with a blue tint, though Saronis' shade was much darker than Palula's.
I know, Palula. There's nothing to be sorry for,
Scarlet assured for the 50th time that hour, all while her son continued to sit on her back and just watch the exchange.
It wasn't your fault. Pew, it's done now,
Saronis said gently to her sister, rubbing her back as the younger changeling wept.
But if the queen hadn't saved us when she did, she didn't do it alone, darling,
Rarity quipped, sitting just off to the side.
And everything worked out fine in the end. You really have nothing to worry about. But if it had, then the shield would have broken, and we would have fought,
Scarlet said bluntly before looking the teenage mare in the eyes.
But it didn't. We're all safe. I
Palula sniffed.
I don't want to be like serpents. Oh, Palula,
Saronis sighed, holding her little sister tight.
Will she be all right?
Rarity asked Saronis.
Just give us some time,
she replied.
Everything that's happened recently, it's been a little tiring. I understand. We're all here for you if you need it,
Rarity stated, offering the young changeling a small smile.
And once you've recovered, we still need to finish that little project of ours.
Saronis smiled.
I'll hold you to that, Rarity. But of course, darling, I have so many plans and ideas. These new forms are simply asking for all kinds of divine designs.
Palula gave a small hiccup, before looking up at the fashionista with a weak smile.
I kinda was looking forward to the ones you already made.
Rarity sighed ruefully.
As was I, but alas, I doubt they really survived Manhattan. But I am not one to give up so easily, and so I shall return to the drawing board and improve upon them in the most fabulous of ways. I believe you.
Valiant gagged.
Girls in dresses. Ugh.
Rarity gave him a critical eye.
Now don't be like that. I could design you such a handsome suit. No thanks. In the design of a gaunt dress uniform.
Suddenly, like a light switch got turned on, Valiant's eyes lit up with interest. Rarity gave a victorious grin.
I thought so.
Yo, Rarity!
Ramadash's voice called out, just as the mare in question poked her head in through the door.
Twilight's awake and some guys saw her head towards the throne room. We should probably go see her.
Rarity nodded before turning back to the other four.
I'm sorry, but my attention is required elsewhere. I shall endeavor to check up on you later.
Psaronis gave her a warm smile.
Okay, Rarity. We haven't connected back to the Hive yet, so give the Queen our best. I will, darling. Get well soon. Twilight,
Celestia whispered as the Changeling Queen stepped into the throne room. The Princess of the Sun had just been talking over the situation in the city with her sister and the captains, with a changeling perspective from Cardus and Facade. She had not expected Twilight to be up and about any time soon, but now that she was... Celestia broke off from the others, approaching the changeling gingerly. She stopped barely an inch away, muzzle to muzzle. And then she threw her forelegs around her in a crushing hug, one which Twilight returned in earnest. They remained like this for a good minute, the only sound reaching their ears being that of the other's heartbeat. It was like a world filled with nothing but tension and worry washed away, each one enjoying the warmth of their embrace, respectively motherly and daughterly. Finally, however, they had to part.
thank you.
Twilight said to her mother figure, giving her a small smile.
For finding me.
Celestia smiled back, giving her an affectionate nuzzle.
Always, Twilight.
So, feeling better? Cardus asked as he limped over to the Queen. You gave us one hell of a scare.
You and me both, Cardus.
Twilight responded.
You took a big risk in doing what you did, you and your family.
Well, by that point it was going to happen one way or another. I can't say I was comfortable with my family coming with me, but you know them. They made their choice, and my opinion was worth nothing. He joked.
And you were right.
Cardus nodded. Maybe. We had to try, either way. Thank you for proving us right. Some retirement this turned out to be, Vladimir jabbed, instinctively going to pat him on the back with his right wing before realizing it was gone again. Ah, right. He waved his stump up and down. It broke.
You never said, can it be repaired?
Princess Luna inquired, stepping closer to her captain. Vladimir shook his head. Nah, it's scrap metal. But they assured me I'll get another one of the same model. Good thing, too. I liked that wing. We know, Broadsword deadpanned.
So, how are things?
Twilight asked of them. Better than they were, Facade noted, trotting up to the Changeling Queen. All changelings from the battle have been moved into the castle, as you know, except the ones who left straight away. Equestrian doctors are doing what they can, as are what changeling medics who remained behind. And those who are lucid enough to perform their duties.
And the rest of Equestria?
The EUP has been ordered to focus on relief efforts,
Celestia explained.
Without the Empress, the changelings are in disarray. Even if, for whatever ludicrous reason, they still wished to fight, well, they're far too disorganized for it.
They won't fight. None of us wanted this war,
Twilight stated.
It was always more of Crudelis' sort of thing.
Indeed. This war is finished,
Luna agreed.
I'm just not sure how things shall proceed.
Better, I would hope, Facade said. First, though, I need to find my family. I've heard from some of the other changelings that they're among the refugees somewhere. I hope that's true.
Your family was taken?
Twilight asked sympathetically. Facade nodded. Yes. Unlike me. I suppose they look more like you now.
I don't know. I think the classic look will become quite a novel one.
So what? I'm a collector's item now? Facade playfully snarked.
I could wrap you up and place you on a shelf if that's what you really want.
Oh, if you want to keep me close. Twilight blinked, a blush forming.
Well,
Facade, seemingly realizing what he had just said as well, matched Twilight's redness. I'm sorry, my queen. I didn't mean to...
No, it's fine. Just, well,
They were both saved from further embarrassment when the doors to the throne room opened up once again, and from the outside corridor, 9 ponies strolled in. Twilight's family and friends. All of them.
Twilight!
Velva called out, running up to and embracing her adoptive daughter.
Oh, I'm so glad you're safe.
you too.
Twilight replied, hugging back.
And you, Dad.
Nightlight joined in on the hug, holding his daughter tight. Welcome home, Twily. Eventually, the 3 Mother de Mare parted from her adoptive parents and looked towards the others, smiling brightly at them.
Twilight?
Cadence simply greeted, the alicorn embracing her sister-in-law.
I'm glad you're safe.
And I you.
Twilight responded.
You must be exhausted after the bombardment we gave you.
Cadence chuckled.
Don't worry about me. You're not the only one who's good with magic.
Twilight gave a faux gasp of offense.
Oh, Cadence! How could you ever say that to me?
Cadence laughed.
Deal with it.
How are you feeling, Twily? Shining asked as Twilight and Cadence parted.
Good. Better after a night's rest. Spike's still sleeping.
Not surprising. He always was a heavy sleeper.
I'm sure Spikey Wikey will join us soon,
Rarity said before giving Twilight her attention.
Now, Twilight, you should know that Seronis and Puelula are fine, and they are sending you their regards.
They're all right? That's a relief. I'm sure they'll rejoin the hive mind in time.
That is our hope, too.
It'll all be fine,
Rainbow Dash said confidently, swooping up to Twilight's eye level.
Especially now that we're all back together.
Of course it will, darling,
Rarity agreed before trotting up to and examining Twilight.
But my, just look at you! I'll need to redesign your entire wardrobe.
Her eyes sparkled mischievously. I'm sure we can talk about that frilly stuff later, Rarity, Applejack stated, dragging the protesting fashionista back by her tail and depositing her a safe distance away. No need to bother her with it now. Rarity huffed.
Fine. We can talk about it over dinner. But you are sure you're all right, Twilight?
Fluttershy asked gently, placing Hoof comfortingly against her.
You went through a lot recently.
Twilight smiled at her.
Yes, Fluttershy, I'll be fine now. I just need to concentrate on helping the ponies and changelings get through this. Wherever it leads us. To sunshine and rainbows, of course.
Pinkie Pie bounced happily.
We did just shoot a big one after all. Now all changelings have a bit inside them.
Almost all, Facade pointed out in a deadpan. Suddenly, Pinkie was next to him, leaning on his shoulder.
Don't worry. I'm sure Twilight will have plenty to share with you.
And what's that supposed to mean? Pinkie gave him a sly wink.
You know what I mean.
Facade just stared at the pink mare blankly as she bounced away, scratching the back of his head idly in confusion.
Alas, things are becoming crowded,
Luna announced, putting herself between them all.
We all have a lot of catching up to do, but we have a great many more tasks as well. We should all be helping.
Seems practical, Applejack agreed. If there's a need to get down and do some work, I'm as honest a worker as you'll get.
Sure, I'll help,
Rainbow Dash stated.
Just point me in a direction. Shining, can you find them some things to do?
Twilight asked of her brother.
Anywhere their skills could be of assistance.
Roger that, Shining confirmed, motioning for the 5 element bears to follow him out. They all bid Twilight farewell, promising to catch up at dinner, and they departed to see where they could lend a hoof. So too did Twilight's adoptive parents, not wishing to get in the way. And then they were followed by the captains, as well as Cardus and Facade, wishing to see where they could help. Twilight and Facade shared an awkward glance as the latter departed. Well, I blew that, he muttered dejectedly to himself. I suppose shapeshifting isn't the only thing I'm bad at. I wouldn't feel too bad, Cardus reassured him. As awkward as that was, you're both just as bad as the other. If nothing else, I think you made a friend today. Once those 4 had departed, that left just the 3 princesses and 1 queen inside the throne room.
It's nice to all be together again,
Cadence said wistfully.
It is, but we can't exactly stand around and just soak it up,
Princess Celestia pointed out.
I should prepare a statement, something to reassure our ponies. I'll manage the ponies actually running around in the halls then,
Princess Luna decided.
And perhaps Cadenza here can assist.
Then I'll continue to oversee the changelings,
Twilight added in.
This is going to be a busy next couple of days.
Yes, it is,
Celestia agreed.
Is it bad that I'm looking forward to doing some plain old paperwork?
Twilight chuckled.
Not at all.
Blah. Paperwork. What's the point if it doesn't even do a dance number? A rather chaotic voice sounded from atop the throne. And when they looked, sure enough, the Lord of Chaos himself sat on the red velvet seat. Really? How dull.
You!
Twilight shouted in a sudden rage, all 3 alicorns turning with Twilight to face the interloper. Discord raised his mismatched appendages defensively. Yes, okay, I know I missed a lot. Again. But once I found out that Fluttershy was in trouble, I came back as quickly as I could.
And when was this, Discord?
Celestia asked in a bemused manner. Discord tapped his talon and paw together. In your time standard, about 5 minutes ago. He was then on the receiving end of some very familiar glares. Yes, this is very much like the last time, Discord noted, but it all turned out all right, and you surely did learn some things from this escapade, as you always do. You got your inevitable friendship beats all moment, and now you can move on with your lives.
Yes, we did win in the end,
Twilight said with a dangerous edge. See, it always works out in the end, Discord stated casually, popping into existence a circular symbol with one half black and the other white. Yin and yang, it all balances out, chaos and harmony and blah 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 blah.
Uh-huh.
Discord rolled his eyes. Oh, come now, Twilight, you mustn't be such a stern-faced grump. Live it up a little. Now that I think about it, what happened to you? Truly, I believe most people will prefer the classic design. A lavender hue surrounded Discord and lifted him into the air. He took on an expression of momentary surprise, but that quickly shifted into one of mere annoyance as he was dragged from the throne room.
You owe me a library!
Twilight shouted as they exited together. The 2 royal sisters, meanwhile, just watched it all transpire with a strange mixture of bemusement and amusement simultaneously.
Well, Tia, if that's not a sign of normality's return, then I don't know what is,
Luna deadpanned.
Indeed,
Celestia replied with a nod.
I hope Twilight isn't too hard on him. He is the spirit of chaos,
Cadence pointed out in retort.
He wouldn't make it easy.
You speak the truth, unfortunately, Luna replied.
Though if she has found a way to stop him from simply vanishing, then I want to watch.
Celestia laughed.
Yes, sister, as would I. But come, we need to...
They were interrupted as the throne room doors opened once again. But the sight they saw was not an expected one. It was the Changeling Queens. All of them. Xerox, Plastron, Cocoon, Pupa, Tempora, Antennae, Carapace, Acatica, Erisana, Austriaca, Germanica, Nurse, Ingrica, Orbata, Pennsylvanica, and the still heavily bruised Vulgaris. Even the daughters of Cocoon and Vulgaris, Princesses Insecta and Imperius, were among them. They had all returned to Canterlot, and each of them stood behind Queen Cocoon as she approached the Royal Alicorns.
Princess Celestia, Princess Luna, Princess Mia More Cadenza,
Cocoon greeted, nodding her head respectfully. The Queen's chitin was now a cyan color, contrasting with her daughter's dark purple.
I am Queen Cocoon. Yes, we know of you,
Celestia responded cautiously.
I know you remained to help, but the others had departed before now. What is this?
The Changeling Queens all shared looks. Some showed acceptance, whereas others showed severe hesitation. But all of them knew it was time and that this had to be done. Cocoon cleared her throat.
Princess Celestia, Matron of the Sun, our time in the shadows is over, and I wish to take the first step in starting diplomatic relations with Equestria. And in turn, we wish to assist in rebuilding what was lost.